Buckle up because today's episode's all about Instagram mastering, posting, reels, stories, and hashtags. Let's go. Hey, welcome back to Millionaire University. I'm Eric Fisher. I am thrilled to bring you this conversation focusing on Instagram with my friend and Instagram expert, Jenn Herman. She's a social media consultant, a speaker, and a globally recognized Instagram expert. She's also the author of Instagram for Dummies, Instagram for Business for Dummies, The Ultimate Guide to Social Media Marketing. And in this conversation, we're talking all things Instagram. Whether you've been using Instagram all along for your business or just for personal use, you're going to get a lot out of this because we're going to cover all the latest and the greatest when it comes to reels, hashtags, DMs, stories, regular Instagram posts, and what you should be doing, how often you should be doing it, breaking it all down for you. This starts off as a 101 class, but gets some 201 and 301 and even 401 type stuff in it. So give it up for Instagram expert, Jenn Herman. Jenn Herman, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
I'm so excited.
I knew that if I wanted to have a conversation about Instagram for small business owners, whether they've already used Instagram before or they've been using it for their business all along, Instagram's a constant moving target, right? So
yes,
I knew you'd be able to handle that whole scenario. So I thought, why not? Let's have a conversation with Jenn. So
I'm so glad. And yes, I mean, according to ChatGPT, I am the best Instagram expert in the world. So I'm glad you asked me.
Well, there you go. If ChatGPT says it, it must be true.
Right. That's my claim to fame these days. I'm like, I'm going to ride that until it stops.
There you go. So when I think of Instagram, and I used to call it this, a Swiss Army knife, I think of all the different components that are there. Original old school posts that were visual, it's images, and then they added movie or video, and then they added stories and live video and DMs and notes, and I'm forgetting one, the big one, reels.
Reels.
Am I missing anything? There's all those.
I mean, there's carousels. They had highlights, or you have highlights, then they have been guides for a while. I mean, yeah, there's all these different avenues where you can kind of dovetail off of what was Instagram and have all these other variations of means to communicate on the platform now.
So some people may have certain pieces of Instagram, like somebody's like, oh, I love stories. They don't really care for much of the rest of it. Maybe some reels because those are vertical video as well. Is there anything that's like at the time of this recording in, let's say March of 2024, because it pivots all the time, or let's say it emphasizes certain things at certain times. Is there any one place that's like the place Instagram's like pushing or giving extra weight or attention to as of right now?
I mean, I can't say there's one thing. There's probably two things, and it depends on who you are. I mean, clearly Reels is the thing, right? Like if someone was to think of something today, they would say it's Reels. And of course, that is true to an extent. You can't ignore everything else in favor of Reels because that alienates people who don't watch videos, right? So you can't just focus on Reels. But yes, that is absolutely the push. But that being said, Instagram's also going after that younger audience, and they are like all in on notes, which ironically, I still don't have on my profile. I have another one. I don't have a dominant one. I know. I'm like the last person to get all the good stuff. Not that I would probably use it so much anyways. It's a business, but there are ways you could use it. But notes is what they like. Every month, they're doing 2 or 3 new tests on notes, rolling out a new feature, adding something, tweaking something. They are really all in on notes at this point and figuring out how to use that for that younger demographic because they're the ones that are consuming it. Those of us pretty much probably anyone over the age of 30 is like, why are we doing notes? Like, welcome to, AOL Instant Messenger. Like, we're all like, this is so old school. We don't need to go backwards. But for the younger users, it's a big deal. And so that right now would be what I would say is like the actual big emphasis of their time and energy and resources is really probably going into notes.
Very interesting. I don't think I've done more than maybe 2 or 3 notes since it's been out. When was it out? Like mid last year? Maybe longer?
Yeah, it's probably been about a year-ish. Yeah. And it was kind of like a test thing. And then it just, according to Meta, it's the thing that all the kids are using these days. How much I trust their data, so I don't necessarily know, but that's what they've made that the emphasis. They changed so you could have, it pinned here, and then they moved it to a different section in the DMs, and then they've added the, looping videos, and they've added, the ability to do like music, and they keep adding all these things to it. But hey, why not put everything in Instagram?
So for people that they're not familiar with notes, or, they're not in that demographic, where do we find it? And like, what's the use case for it?
But to find it, if you have it, you're going to be able to see it in your DMs. If you go to your DMs, you'll be able to see anybody who shared a note, and then you can create your own from there. So that's the best way to easily see if you have the function. Some people don't. Whatever. So the use case on this is that it's meant to be kind of like an old school tweet, like they're like 60 characters, they're super short. And it's kind of like a story, like it's not meant to live on. It's like, it's supposed to disappear, but now they're letting you kind of archive them, and they're testing a wall where you could like keep all your old ones there. So it's evolving, but essentially it's supposed to kind of disappear like a story does, right? And so the idea being you can share a quick little update to your friends and family. So you can be like heading off to Tahoe for the weekend. Or like a little, update as to, stuck in traffic, or, long day at work or school or whatever it is. It's meant to be these short little blips of thoughts, opinions, what you're doing, how you're feeling, that sort of thing. So again, for most businesses, this isn't really practical, but there are definitely some ways you could use it. Like if you have a flash sale, or if you have your, annual sale or your quarterly sale going on, you could pop up a little note that says, flash sale starts right now. And then that's up there for that, 24-hour window or whatever, that you're letting people know, hey, things are on sale, come over and buy them. Or if, you're a speaker like me and you're traveling, you could be like getting on a jet plane kind of thing. So there's ways that you could still use it within business use, but whether or not your audience is seeing them and consuming them, to your point, you've probably done this 2 or 3 times since having the feature. Is it helpful? I don't know. I can't answer that for you without knowing you, without knowing your audience and that sort of thing. But there are some fun ways that you could incorporate these as another means to communicate. But of course, that always means another strategy. It's another thing to monitor. It's another thing to create content for. And how much are you willing to create that if you're already doing everything else? So you got to weigh out the pros and cons.
Sounds like it's one of those things where if you've got a strategy everywhere else, maybe you try it just to kind of drum up some engagement. Because I think if I remember correctly, I had posted some, and I posted something like, I don't know, maybe it was a question, maybe it was just an offhanded statement. I feel like people clicked it, saw it, and then replied to it, and it started a DM conversation, kind of like if people reply to stories.
Yeah. And it's, again, they keep evolving it. And now it's one of these things where now there's a group thread option. So if I reply to your note and then a third person replies, they can see my response. I can see theirs. So anyone that's responded to that thread can now see all those responses, but nobody else publicly can see it. So again, from a business perspective, that opens up a huge can of worms, right? Like, do you want people popping in and responding with like, your product is absolute horrible, like, and then everyone else can see that? Like, you have to like cut down that thread. Like, you got to, how do you get rid of it? Like, so there's all these things where it's like, it used to be much more like, somebody could reply and it was a one-on-one, but now they're opening it up to, if anybody that replies, it's a group thread, which again, in a personal environment makes sense.
Yeah.
If I post something and 3 of my friends all comment, and it's like, hey, what are we doing on a Friday night? And everyone starts commenting. Next thing you know, you're planning a barbecue out with your friends. Great. But in a business perspective, do you want everyone being able to see what everyone else is saying, especially if something is negative or if there's something bad happening in your industry at that time and you're like, shut down the communication. So there's things to be aware of as this evolves and until they kind of figure out. But yes, it does allow for conversation. And it's up to you how you want to use that, because it can be more than just a one-on-one conversation now.
Okay. Very interesting. Yeah. It's one of those ones. It's an outlier for sure when it comes to Instagram for a lot of people, I guess. So, well, let's jump back to the basics for a second here. And let's talk about the profile. Like, that's the thing that when you set your account up, you want to have a strong presence on. I know this because I've heard you say it before. What are the core pieces that we need to pay attention to when it comes to starting up an Instagram or effectively overhauling our strategy, making sure we've got a strong profile?
So I'm going to make this as short as possible because I could do a whole 1 hour presentation just on your profile. So we're going to make this short and sweet. And if you want more, feel free to ask me after the fact. But so the key is that you want your profile to be set up for first-time visitors and for conversions, because those are the two reasons you're using your profile. Someone's going to come to your profile the first time they visit you. So your profile has to be optimized for that first-time visitor. The only other time someone's ever really going to come to your profile is to go to that link in bio, to send you a message, to call you, because they're at that stage where they want to take a conversion step, whether it's signing up for something, visiting your website, looking at your product, buying your service, whatever it is. So your profile has to be optimized for those two reasons. So for those first-time visitors, you're writing your profile description as that 30-second elevator pitch. That, who are you? Like, why should they care about you? And write it from that assumption that these people have no idea who you are. They don't know what you do. They don't know how long you've been around. They don't know who you work with. Assume that you're writing this as that first-time visitor experience. Keep in mind, you want to share who you are, what you do, and then what's in it for them as the third key thing. So this isn't all about you, right? It's like, what do they get by following you? Are they going to get tips every Tuesday? Are they going to get exclusive discounts on Instagram that they won't get somewhere else? Like, what is their incentive from that perspective, if possible, to follow you? Or again, what's in it for them? Like, why should they care about your brand? What are you doing as a product or service that's going to make their life better? So we want to make sure your profile is written from that perspective. And then we want to make sure you have that link in bio. So we want to send them to something relevant. And one of my best tips is to actually create a dedicated landing page on your website. Do not send them to your homepage. That's one of the worst things you can do for 90% of businesses. Some businesses, your homepage, maybe you only have a one-page website. Then that's where you're going to send them. That's okay. Some businesses have everything linked to from their homepage. So it is a landing page. Great. You can do that. For most businesses, though, your homepage doesn't get them where they want to go. If you're saying, go to the link in bio to read my latest blog post, and they go to your homepage, now they still have to find blog. Then they have to find the blog. And the more steps you're making them take, the less likely they are to convert. So we want to send them to a dedicated landing page on your website that you are going to create. You're going to work with your web designer, or if you have the ability to do this on your own WordPress site or whatever, to go in and create a super simple mobile optimized landing page. No pop-ups, no distractions all over it. And it's just going to have 4 or 5, maybe 6 options that you typically promote. So again, like your blog, your about us, your product page, your services page, how to work with you type things. Maybe you've got a lead generation or opt-in thing. That's going to be on there as well. This is all evergreen items that you're typically going to send people to. That way, when someone clicks on that link in bio, they go there. There's the option to buy that book or to get that lead gen, freebie that you're giving away, or to read. They go to blogs and they're going right to your blog page. Whatever it is, you're making it easy for them to navigate. But the key there is now you own all that traffic. You haven't given it away to link in bio or Linktree. You own the traffic. You can retarget with ads if you have your Facebook pixel on there. So this is all that conversion stage, right? We want to optimize that profile so that once you get them to click on that link, you own that traffic. You own that visit. You can retarget with ads. You can track their behavior through Google Analytics to see what they're doing once they're on your website and be able to better determine over a period of time what is working. You may be shocked to see that most people that come to your link in bio are more interested in your about page than your blogs. And you're like, really? Maybe I need to do a better job of talking about myself on Instagram because nobody knows who I am. But you can start to figure that out by looking at that data. So those are the 2 big things you really want to focus on with your profile.
So the other key piece is whether you've been posting or creating content and uploading it to posts, stories, reels, whatever for a while, or you're starting off brand new. Okay, I haven't created an Instagram account for my business. I'm starting out fresh. Content. That's the problem. We need to make the content. And also that plays into getting people to go to the bio and click that link and go to your site and convert. What do we do to start to come up with, okay, what kind of content should I be making? And should I be posting it as a post? Should I be doing a carousel, a video? Like, this is where that whole, like I did that precursor earlier. We've got all those different possibilities and you don't want to post it all of those places. So What do you tell people when they're like, I don't know what to post or where to post it?
Gosh, Eric is literally giving us like the masterclass on Instagram in 30 minutes. Seriously, like all the big questions. Okay. So again, this could be an hour-long answer. But so there's a couple things to keep in mind. There are essentially 3 categories of content that I recommend you post. And these are not going to be equally distributed. It's not like 30%, 30%, 30%, but there's 3 general categories that I recommend. The first one is going to be your resources and your tutorials, your value add content. These could be quick and easy tips. These could be, answering frequently asked questions. They could be, industry news, whatever it is. These are the value add pieces that make someone go, oh, that's really helpful. I want to save that for later. Or, oh, I'm going to share that with my friend because we were just talking about this last night. And so again, these can be any range of topics, but they're going to be your value add. The second topic is your engagement fluff. And when I say engagement fluff, it is the softer, lighter, lighthearted content that is meant to get engagement. There is no call to action. There is no asking for anything. You're literally just trying to make people feel good. And it could be bloopers. It could be your pet. It could be fun facts about you or your business. It could be personal things about you. If you're, like I'm a solopreneur, my business is me. Every weekend on either Saturday or usually Friday or Saturday, I post something that's much more personal about how I grew up, why I am the way I am, my business views on life or whatever it is. They're very personal. I don't do a ton of hashtags. It's just me sharing something maybe about my daughter. And these are purely to keep my engagement because we need the content that people are interacting with. Because the more they interact positively with at least one post, the more likely they are to see everything else. So we need the engagement post. Their job is just to get people to like them, comment on them. Maybe they share them, but they're probably not going to get a lot of saves. And it's really just meant to keep things interesting and a little more personalized. Your third bucket, which is not, like I said, a 30%, is going to be your sales posts. Those are going to be talking about your actual product or service. So now you're coming in and saying like, hey, we have this available. Or, hey, new colors are out. Or launching next month. Or whatever it is, you're going to have those various product and service related posts that are going to have the click the link in bio to buy. Send us a DM to get on the wait list. Whatever it is that you want that call to action to be, those 3 have to work together. So what happens is, again, the engagement keeps you interactive, right? It gets people saying, yes, I like this. I want to see more of your content. The value add is what helps you get distribution. That gets the shares, that gets the saves, it builds the trust, it builds the authority so that when they see the sales post, they're like, hey, yeah, I'm ready to buy. Or they're not ready to buy, but now it's on their mind. And then next time, or maybe the time after that, or maybe 2 years later, sometimes there's a really long lead cycle, but you're doing all these pieces in combination that serve each other. If you're just doing sales posts, people stop interacting. And when they stop interacting, your content goes lower and lower and lower in the feed. If all you're doing is engagement posts, great, but you're not selling anything. So all of these pieces have to work together to get you your ultimate goal with Instagram, which would be to sell. The second part of that question being, is it carousels? Is it reels? Is it stories? Is it feed posts? That is a much harder question to answer. But what I typically recommend people do to start is to, and again, you don't have to do this, but this is my recommended formula, especially if you're trying to recalibrate your strategy or you're just getting started. Every week, you want to do 1 reel, 1 carousel, 1 feed post, and if possible, you want to do 1 story every single day. So what happens with this is you allow, and you have to do this for at least 6 to 8 weeks. You can't just do this for 2 weeks and be like, okay, I did that strategy. But what it does is it allows you to start to see what your audience wants. So if reels are doing really well for you, then maybe you switch the pattern to being 2 reels a week and 1 photo. And then the next week it's 2 reels a week and a carousel. So maybe you're alternating the photos and the carousels. Clarifying, carousels are when you have up to 10 like 10 slides in 1 post where you can swipe through horizontally. And those can be photos and or videos.
I have a quick question on that, actually. So I seem to remember that if somebody didn't engage with one of the images that comes up from a carousel, there's a second chance where it'll come up and it'll show one of the other ones in hopes they'll engage with it.
Exactly. So they'll show you the first one. The first time you're scrolling through, you see the first photo in the carousel. If you do not interact with it, meaning you don't like it, comment it, share it, save it, something like that, the next time you log in, Instagram will show you that same post with the second post from the series. So the second slide. And so these, I usually say, sir, like save these for strategic purposes, like your sales post. Because if someone doesn't interact with it the first time, you get a second chance to convert them. They can be great though for, again, behind the scenes, or if you did a conference or you do charity events or galas or like a holiday party or whatever. Carousels are great to put a ton of content into one single post and not overwhelm your audience with 8 different posts. They can have it all in one and just scroll through. So there's a lot of advantages to carousels. And I have some clients that are like, Jen, all my content is carousels, like, because they're so powerful. And they're like, I can't stop using them because they just work. And I'm like, then keep using them. Do what you gotta do. Follow the data. But the key being, like I said, you can do one reel, one carousel, one feed post. And when I say feed post, that's just a single static image. You start to, over a period of 6 to 8 weeks, you'll see what your audience wants. And then you can ultimately decide what works best for you with your content strategy. But do not go all photos. Do not go all reels. Because if all you create is reels, you're never going to get in front of me. I don't watch a lot of reels. I prefer to scroll through the traditional feed and look at photos. And I may watch a video or two, but I don't typically stay in the reels feed. So if you're not creating content outside of the reels feed, you lost me. I will never see your post. And if you're only creating photos and I'm a reels consumer, then you're never going to show up in the reels feed and I'm never going to see your content. So we never want to go exclusively one way or the other. We always want to have some balance of the two. But if reels do really well for you, you're going to do more reels than you do static posts. But don't just go all in and be like, well, someone told me I had to do 30 reels in 30 days. No, they may work for 5 minutes, but it's not going to work long term. That's not a strategy. And so you really want to think about how you're hitting the content that is going to reach all of your audiences as much as possible over time.
Now, you mentioned stories, and I think you said doing one story per day. Is that what you said? Like, that seemed like, wait, you said one a week for these other ones. Why one a day with stories?
Well, because stories only last 24 hours. And so the average consumer on Instagram is not on Instagram every single day. The average is about 45 to 50 minutes a day that somebody is on Instagram. So people are on average on Instagram upwards of, 45 minutes to an hour a day. They spend a lot of that time in Instagram stories. For most consumers, Instagram stories is where they actually spend the bulk of their time. But that content only lasts for 24 hours. So if most people are in stories, but hypothetically, they only pop in 2 or 3 days a week, most consumers, again, the younger generation, maybe a little bit more, but most consumers aren't logging onto Instagram every single day. And so if you posted a story on Monday, but I logged in on Wednesday, I never saw your story. So I didn't get the message. But if you posted again on Thursday and I don't log in again until Sunday, I missed it again. So the stories we want as much as possible to be able to keep top of mind, right? So if it's one single frame, doesn't have to be a series of 10 things in a story every single day, literally just one thing every day, just to keep the momentum, to keep content there for your audience to interact with. And because it only lasts 24 hours, it's totally okay to repurpose content. You can have a sales story on Monday and put it again on Wednesday and put it again on Saturday. Like, that's fine. Because if I didn't see it on Monday, when I'm seeing it on Wednesday, it's like, oh, that's new to me. And if I did see it on Monday and I see it again on Wednesday, I'm like, oh, that's right. Forgot they had that on sale. Like, I'm not going to be mad that I saw them post twice. So it's okay to repurpose it and make sure that you're getting that message out there. So yes, ideally, if you can manage it, and so that I do want to put that caveat where even if it's these 3 posts a day and 1 story a day, and you're listening to this going, this Jenn Herman person is crazy. They're like, you can't post 1 time a week, let alone 3 posts and a story a day. She thinks I'm living on Instagram. Then don't do it. Like, don't push yourself to a point where you have to do this and you can't run your business. Like, if you can't do your invoicing because you're trying to post Instagram stories, stop posting Instagram stories. Get your invoices out. But do a variation of this. So if you can't do those 3 posts a week, do 1 reel this week, then do a carousel next week, and then do a photo the following week, and then go back. So then you do a reel, a carousel, a photo. So every week you're doing one post. You're going to spread this out now to like a 3 or 4 month interval instead of, 2 months to really start to test it. But you don't have to post 3 times a week. If you can only do once a week, that's okay too. And then for stories, if you can't post every day, that's okay. But try to post every other day. Try to like maximize that time that you're in the feed where you're not losing the ability to get in front of that audience.
And it sounds like you're advocating for quality over quantity, that it's much better to spend the time crafting quality content than to just push and push and push when people are going to swipe right past it or just move on.
Bad content will kill you on Instagram. So the way the algorithm works is it doesn't hide anything, right? Facebook hides content. You log on to Instagram or you log on to Facebook, and Facebook decides what they want to show you. You're following 30 pages, they're only going to show you 10 posts, right? They're not going to show you posts from all 30 because they make that decision algorithmically. Instagram doesn't hide anything. They just sort it based on the last time you logged in. But let's face it, the last time you logged in, you maybe scrolled for 48 seconds, then got distracted and jumped off. And when you come back on, it refreshes again. And now maybe it's been 24 hours since the last time you logged on. And maybe now you spend 5 minutes scrolling, but you're never scrolling down far enough, right? So you start to feel like you're not seeing things, but technically they're all there. But what Instagram does with its algorithmic ranking is it says, how likely are you to interact with this content? So if every time I post something, if you interact positively, if you click ... more and you read that caption, if you swipe through that carousel, if you scroll back to go back and look at my post, if you like, comment, share, save, any of those things, Instagram goes, you liked that content, you had a positive experience with it, we're going to make sure we show it to you again. So positive, good quality content means you're going to see more of my content the next time you log in. However, if you look at my content and go whoosh and slide right by, if you do that enough times, Instagram starts going, you don't seem to be interested in Jenn's trends. We're going to stop showing you your content so high in the feed. And you go lower and lower and lower in that algorithmic ranking to the point where you basically stop seeing my content because you're never going to scroll far enough back to get there. And so poor quality content is what drops you down algorithmically. I'd rather you not post than post bad content. Because if you're not posting, that's okay. When you do, and it's good, you're going to be at the top. People are going to see it. But if you're posting just to post, you're actually going to hurt yourself in the long run. We want to make sure that you're posting the right things with the right message that serve your audience in the right way, that are visually appealing, that are fun, entertaining, valuable, whatever it is that makes people want it. And that's going to keep them seeing your content and keep you being more likely to drive those conversions.
That's a great algorithm update. Gosh, because that one's constantly changing. I do love the fact that you stated outright that they don't hide anything. The conspiracy theory of the shadow ban has been still, that's still a term people use on other platforms. Even
to the point where like Adam Mosseri, who's the head of Instagram, he doesn't even stop telling people. Like for years, it's been shadow banning doesn't exist. Now he just says, okay. He just addresses it. Like he doesn't even try to negate the term anymore because it's become so common. Like it's just become the accepted phrase that never was a thing in the first place, but everyone latched onto it. And it's like you said, it's a conspiracy theory that Instagram's out to hurt you.
So I brought the term up. We probably should take a quick second, 30 seconds, and just explain, okay, if you've heard of shadow banning or if you haven't heard of shadow banning, what is that?
So shadow banning actually originated years and years ago, and it was a term developed by photographers. So back in the day, hashtags were the only way to search. Now we have much more robust ways of searching on Instagram, but at the time, the only way you could search was for either location, username, or hashtag. And so photographers were in there using their hashtag on their photos. And then when they would go look at their hashtag, their photos weren't showing up. Not all of them, right? Not all of them were showing up. And so they were like, oh, Instagram is hiding my content from people. And they didn't realize that algorithms had been in place that said, we're going to determine how many posts to show you. So on a hashtag, whether it has 20 posts or 20,000 posts or 20 million posts, Instagram is selectively choosing which post to show in that hashtag hub. It was never a guarantee that every single post with that hashtag would show up. If that's the case, Instagram is 12, 13, 14 years old, however old it is now. Can you imagine how many posts there would be with the hashtag love? Like you would be 8 bazillion, jillion, gazillion, you can't possibly keep all of that content. And so Instagram started algorithmically determining what to show in the hashtags. And then people started freaking out that they were shadow banned. I don't know who coined the term, but some photographer used it and spread like wildfire. And then everyone started using this term saying that Instagram is hiding our content. We've been shadow banned. We're being blocked. We're not showing up in searches. We're not showing up in hashtags. And Instagram's like, it's an algorithm. It determines what content to show you based on the likelihood that you're going to interact with the content, not that you're going to see everything. And so there is no malicious intent for Instagram to hide anything. They want you to see. They want you to spend time on the platform. They want you to buy from people so that people keep running ads on the platform. Their goal is never to punish you as a business. The problem is if your content isn't something the audience is likely to interact with, Instagram's not going to show it to them or things that they're not interested in. So it's not about you as a business. It's about the consumer and what they actually want.
Now, speaking of hashtags, where shadow banning originated from, hashtag strategy. I know recently there was kind of like a fluke or a bug where it seemed like there was only 5. I know at one point it was like up to 30. And then it was like, no, put it in as the first comment. No, put it in as part of the captions. There's been all this debate. What's the current proper hashtag strategy? How should we be thinking about hashtags?
Absolutely. And so I'm going to totally shameless plug my ebook, Hashtags Unlocked, because I just launched that in February. And it is 20 pages that explain everything you need to know about hashtags, because yes, it is constantly evolving. And this updated, I launched it and then a week later, Instagram glitched out and freaked out the world. And I lost 3 days of my life trying to deal with it. But the Hashtags Unlocked ebook even addresses the 5 hashtag issue and how to prepare for that in the future. So you can still use up to 30 hashtags. That is the case. Instagram has fixed the glitch. And I say fixed because I think somebody accidentally hit the wrong button and released something that they weren't supposed to release and they had to retract it. They do not think it was a glitch. It's in the system. So we know it's coming at some point, or at least in some sort of beta, they're playing with this as an option. And so for now, you can use your 30 hashtags, use them. I say use at least 20. You should be using 20 to 30 because these are categorization tools. These tell Instagram what your content is about. In general, if you have a good, long descriptive caption, your hashtags would be redundant because artificial intelligence is reading your caption for search to know what your content is about. And your hashtag should be redundant to that messaging and that industry, but it still helps give that added level of categorization. Now on Reels, because it's videos, most people don't typically put long captions, and you shouldn't really put really long captions on your Instagram Reels at this stage. In which case, we want more hashtags because we want the artificial intelligence tools running in the background that look at a one-line sentence of a caption on a reel to still know what that post is about and categorize it in the right search location. So we want to make sure we're using those hashtags for sure on our reels. I say use 20 to 30 on both reels and feed posts. Go nuts. But now it is actually paramount that you leave them in the caption. You don't look spammy. Nobody cares. The only people who care are us as marketers, and we think it looks bad, but trust me, your consumers don't care if there's hashtags in there. It's Instagram. They're used to it. But if you put the hashtags in a comment, yes, you will still show up in those hashtag searches, but they don't work for keyword search. Instagram only trolls the caption for keywords. So your hashtags only work for keyword search differentiation if they stay in the caption. So that is different than it was, 2 years ago when it was like, it didn't matter, put them wherever you want. Now it does matter. So we want to make sure that we're putting those in the caption for that searchability. And that's what's going to help get you into Explore. It's going to help you into suggested posts. It's going to help when someone does look for those keyword searches. Those hashtags are telling Instagram what your content is related to and if it's relevant to that target audience. So we want to make sure that we are using ones that are industry related, that they're content related, what's happening in the actual post itself. We want them about your brand, your business, your own branded hashtags. And we want to vary. We don't want to go super, super popular. Like if you're in real estate, don't use hashtag real estate. That's the most globally recognized hashtag that's completely useless. It's never going to help you show up in search. You want to get more specific to hashtag San Diego real estate or, even the neighborhood within the city type things. Like you want to make sure you're getting more niche down than just something super broad. Same thing. Like if you sell, sneakers, we're not going to use hashtag sneakers. Like that's what everybody uses. That's not going to reach your audience. We want to make sure that you're honing down to specific hashtags. Again, do you only service geographic locations? Do you ship abroad? Do you only ship domestically or, internationally? All these things factor in. Make sure you're choosing the hashtags that serve the audience that you're actually trying to reach.
And I love that you called out that having it in the caption and why, but also that essentially it's keywords and it's redundant if you've had a great caption already. I love that. I think we can all kind of wrap our heads around that and say, well, if I'm writing good captions, that's talking about or having a good call to action. It's describing, whichever type of post we've done, We've written it according to that. And then at the bottom, just start throwing in the keywords that make sense. And they should all stand out because you've already talked about them up above.
Exactly. Because that's the thing, right? Yeah. Like we want to make sure that our content is showing up where we want it to be. And like you said, if I'm writing a caption that talks about, Instagram hashtags, and I'm writing about, Instagram hashtags and hashtags on Instagram, like clearly the post is about Instagram hashtags. I don't need to use hashtag Instagram hashtag.
Well, that was very meta right there.
My point. But so it's one of those things where like, if my caption is super descriptive, I don't necessarily need to use that hashtag, but it's also that reinforcement that if I do use it, that is what this content is about. And I should point out that when it comes to that keyword search on Instagram, it looks at three key things. It looks at your profile description that we already talked about, making sure that's optimized. It's going to look at your post caption, and it's going to look at those hashtags in the post caption. Those are the three things that it looks at, plus then the AI scraping what the visual looks like. So if I always write about social media, digital media, Instagram tips, and all this sort of stuff, and if I go to the San Diego Zoo with my daughter and I put up a reel or a post about the San Diego Zoo and I start using all these zoo hashtags and someone happens to go to Instagram and search for San Diego Zoo, my content is likely at some point to show up in that search because I've used all the hashtags and I've got a caption about it. But if somebody else is a travel blogger, if somebody else is, a kids activity blogger or whatever it is, and they always talk about kids activities, family vacations, and that's what's in their bio, and that's what's in all of their content, and that's what's in that post caption, their content is going to rank higher in a San Diego Zoo search than mine because I never talk about that topic. I'm not the expert. I'm not all about that topic. So keep that in mind for your business. If you want people finding you for certain keywords, if you want them finding you for certain problems, solutions, industry, whatever it is, you want to make sure that you're using those phrases, those terminology, those types of references in your bio that says this is what you always talk about, as well as making sure you're doing that consistently in your content. So if you're a plumber, but yet all of your videos are about your dog, Instagram's like, this doesn't make sense. You have all these dog videos, but your profile says you're a plumber. But if you say you're a plumber, then all your posts are about plumbing and home repair and how to fix a leaky faucet. When someone goes Googling or looking for that on Instagram, there's your content, right? Because that's what you're always talking about. So we want to make sure that you are keeping that consistency for that optimized search.
We've talked a lot about things that you should be doing. I think you're also seeing a lot of things that people are doing. They're like, oh, don't do that. What are some of the no-nos that you've seen people doing and you've had to kind of slap their hand and say, no, do this instead?
It's not as much anymore. Instagram definitely has gotten more lenient. Like you can kind of get away with more things because there's so many types of content. The big thing I would say is don't go all in on only one thing. So don't turn around and just do all reels or do all seed posts. Make sure that you are mixing up the content. One of the things that I absolutely hate that people do is when they put hashtags in their profile description. So we just talked about the value of hashtags. We talked about the profile description. You're like, great, I'm going to go put a whole bunch of hashtags in that profile description. Please don't. because those actually, it's scanning for keywords. You don't need to make it a hashtag. And if you make it a hashtag, so if I put in there like, ranked number 1 by hashtag ChatGPT, hashtag Instagram marketing tips. If I start putting in all these things as hashtags in my profile, when someone comes to my profile, they can tap on that hashtag and they go tap on ChatGPT, which has nothing to do with me. I'm just taking this as my claim to fame. They click on that and now they're in a ChatGPT search and they're looking at all these other content about ChatGPT and AI and all these things. And they've gotten down a whole different rabbit hole and I've lost. So if I had that first time visitor come to my profile and then I was like, okay, bye, they're never going to come back to me. So make sure you're not using hashtags in your profile description unless it is your own branded hashtag. If you have a campaign going on or a giveaway or something like that where you're using it for a limited time, yes, use that. If you have your own branded hashtag or something about, testimonials about your brand, by all means, put that in there because if people click on it, they're going to learn more about your business. Definitely avoid the hashtag dumping in the profile. And then the other thing that I don't see as much anymore, I still see it pop up now and then, but it was a big thing like a year to 2 years ago, was the fancy fonts. And I'm like, oh my God, stop. Like, it's one of the worst things you can do on Instagram is to use those fancy fonts where like you try to make it look cursive or like it has like a big bold block font or something. And people were doing it all the time in their profiles and in their captions. The problem with those is they aren't text. They're actually, every single character is an emoji. And so when Instagram is actually scraping all the data off of your profile or your caption, those don't count. They're not actual letters. They don't make words in the world of data scraping. And so all that information you put in there is irrelevant to the Instagram search. And what looks really pretty on iOS may not look really pretty on Android or vice versa. So that pretty font on your phone is gobbledygook and impossible to read on my phone. And I'm going, I can't read this. And what happens when I can't read it? I scroll. Negative interactions happen. So please do not go down some crazy jaunt of using fancy fonts. And if you're using them, please stop.
Not only can we not read it as humans, the computers can't either. And as much as we like and don't like that at the same time, it's like you're losing out on benefit. So
you're hurting yourself in the long run.
Are there any other features of Instagram that we haven't talked about that are lesser known that still can yield some ROI?
So one of the things we haven't really talked much about, but direct messages. And direct messages are dark social, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. It just means we can't measure it, right? We don't get metrics. We don't get to see how, like if someone sends you a DM from your feed post, we don't get metrics on it. Once they're in your DM, did they convert to a sale? We don't have metrics on it. These are things you have to track in your CRM or your software to see what's happening. So it's dark social in the sense that we can't track it in the same way. But DMs are one of the best ways to actually drive conversions off the platform. And it's so underutilized. And yet Instagram keeps giving us all this functionality to open up a DM where if somebody likes your Instagram story, direct message. Like, I am literally liking your post and opening the door for you to have a conversation with me. As your customer, I'm saying, hi, I'm here. And if you're not taking that opportunity to start to build a relationship, you're missing out on so much for the long-term relationship with that potential or existing customer. These are the chances to have little tiny bits of conversation. It's not like someone puts a heart emoji, heart eye emoji on your story and you're like, great, 50% off sale starts tomorrow. Like, we're not going to jump in with the sale, but even a thank you or, oh my gosh, right? Like just some sort of comment engagement back starts to build this relationship. And then that's how you start to move down the line of them going, well, hey, by the way, I had a question. And you're like, oh, absolutely. Here's the answer, blah, 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 blah. Next thing you know, they're asking you another question or they're ready to buy or they're saying, oh my God, I just told my friend about you and they're signing up for your deal next week because I can't wait for them to join or whatever it is. It's the relationship building opportunity. But one step even better than that, because that's pretty great in and of itself. But the data geek behind the scenes like me, algorithms on Instagram are based on a one-to-one relationship. So how you interact with my content determines where my content appears in your feed. In the world of Instagram, once you've had a direct message conversation with somebody, Instagram is like, oh, you're friend. And guess what happens to friend? Your content goes higher in the feed. So once you, as a customer, send me a DM and I respond to you, Instagram is more likely to put my content higher in your feed because it assumes we have a personal relationship and therefore my content is of more value to you or you're more likely to want to interact with it. So again, to get that algorithmic boost, open up those DMs, get people to send you the DMs. I tell people all the time, like instead of saying click the link in bio, which is great for organic content, if you're promoting like a campaign for only a week, or like I will often do webinars or a podcast, right? And I'm like, if you want the link to sign up for the webinar, send me a DM. I don't put it in my link in bio. Every person that sends me a DM and says, Jen, I'd love the link for that webinar. A, market research, I know who's signing up. B, now we have personal relationships and they're going to see all my other content. And C, I get to start to have a conversation with them and build a relationship with that person who I now know is interested in that webinar, that product, that service, that option, that free ebook, whatever it is that I'm offering. That is now a warm to a hot lead and I can build a relationship with them.
Oh, that's so good. I love this idea of using DMs as a relationship starter. It's not like sending them a one-off email. It's actually opening a chat thread, an ongoing chat thread that you can revisit and hopefully get them to comment more and you can reply to them. And again, I love that it feeds into the algorithm too. I was not aware the extent that this was like algorithmic gold. So it's very, very cool.
Right. And it is, I always tell people, I'm like, especially if you've ever worked in retail or if you have a storefront, right? Someone doesn't walk in the door of your boutique and you go, here, buy this and throw it in their face, right? Like that's not how we operate. They walk in the door, you say hi, you talk about the weather, and maybe they have their dog or their kid with them and you share some banter back and forth about how cute they are. And then you say, can I help you with anything? Like they've already walked into your storefront. They're clearly a potential customer and we don't shove something in their face. On social media, you don't even know if they're even a potential customer yet. And we're like, here, buy. We want to use direct messages as that opportunity to build that conversation, to build the chit chat and the banter and the get to know stage before you start saying, hey, by the way, did you want to buy something? You can move to that stage over time, but that could take a message or two. It could take a year. It just depends on that customer and their journey. But DMs give you the opportunity to build into that conversation rather than just coming out hot out of the gate on a cold lead and throwing something in their face.
Yeah. And we never know where they're at, in what stage they're in. Yeah. And so this at least allows us to continue the conversation, the relationship. So
exactly.
Jen, so much good stuff. We could keep going on and on. This is like, this is bare bones but although there's some advanced stuff in here for sure. So we're serving everyone. I want to get people over to the new thing that you said just came out, as well as where they can jump in and find out more about what you're doing and all of the great Instagram constant research and just experience and value you have for everybody that is using Instagram for their business.
Thanks. Yeah. So as I mentioned, hashtags unlocked. Yeah, you can go to Jenn's Trends, JENNS trends.com/books, and you can buy the book there. It is a PDF download. It's $9, maybe an expensive coffee or a really cheap cocktail. And you can learn everything you need to know about hashtags. So definitely feel free to check that out. And then everything connects from jenstrends.com. You can find pretty much all my links and everything else about me, how to work with me and all that sort of stuff from there as well. I'm on Instagram at JENNS_trends. That's 2 N's in Jen, Jens_trends. And feel free to connect with me there. And if you do want to stay on top of all the Instagram updates, because we do average 10 to 12 updates per month on Instagram alone, I have a newsletter that goes out the first week of every month, the first Wednesday of every month. And it's all the Instagram updates broken down in detail, plus all the big social media news from around the world. And then fun resources and things that I think, you might find interesting, whether it's new books, new courses, podcasts, all that sort of stuff that's going on in the world of social media. And you can sign up for that if you go to jenstrends.com as well, or go to my Instagram, click the link in bio.
Yes. Awesome. All right. Well, we will link up to all that in the show notes. Jen, thank you so much for dropping all this Instagram wisdom for us today. Thank you.
Wow, my pleasure. This is great.
Man, you got to give it up for Jenn. She knows what she's talking about, and we crammed so much in here. And by following the steps that we talked about, you're going to be able to create an awesome Instagram strategy or augment the one you already have for your business that's going to increase your engagement, build your brand, optimize your conversions by leaning into Instagram's features and algorithm to strategically boost your account's presence and influence on Instagram. I hope you took great notes. I know that if you did, you're going to yield a lot from this class. And if not, go back and listen to it all over again, taking much better notes. But definitely, if you found this helpful, share it out there. Hit that share button wherever you're listening to this. Let people know about this episode and what you loved about it. All right, that's it for this class. Thank you so much for joining us and showing up and paying attention. And until next time, class dismissed.